Think your characters are ready for the end of the world? Not without mastering the lingo. In this episode, we crack open the Prepper Dictionary, such as SHTF scenarios, bug out bags, the KISS method, and what EDC stands for. Whether you're writing the gritty survival fiction or just want your protagonist to sound like they know what their gear is, we'll arm you with all the acronyms and jargon that real preppers actually use. Tune in to level up your realism. Welcome to Writing Rule with Allie, the writer's inspiration station for real life and lifestyles, from historical to post-apocalyptic, helping you bring your rule stories to life. I'm Allie, and this is episode number 113, Prepper Lingo for Writers. Stick around to the end to find out all the ways things could possibly go wrong in your story. Now, let's get into this. A brief heads up. This episode will contain some curse words, because we can't cover this topic without them. Nothing you won't hear out of a PG-13 movie, but for those with little ears, you might want to pop in the earbuds. This is your only warning. Before we jump into the lingo, we have to define what is a prepper. Now, there are several categories to this, with many subcategories, but we're just going to cover the main ones because we don't want to spend the next year dividing out all of the categories. The most well-known of these are the Doomsday Preppers, likely because they have their own TV series for a bit. They believe that the end of the world as we know it is coming. Not could happen, but it will happen. The only question is, when will it happen? Some of the things they believe could happen include invasion, nuclear war, multiple supervolcanoes erupting all over the world at the same time, and giant asteroids hitting the Earth to wipe out most people, the unprepared people. Next up is SHTF preppers. That stands for shit hit the fan. The main concern they worry about is social unrest. Some believe this could lead to war. Other people believe it could affect the flow of goods or even the value of the dollar. The most common people in this category are former soldiers, police officers, anyone in the first responder category, people who have come from communist countries, or people that have lived in war zones or lived in communist countries. I have even met more than one person who was forced to be a child soldier in their birth country who wants to make sure that never happens to their children. These people have seen with their own eyes what could happen and never want to be caught off guard if any of these scenarios happen. Let me be clear that not everyone who is a veteran, police officer, or first responder is a prepper in this sense. And it's okay to write characters who are not. Next up is the prepper. Okay, no special wording for this one. They are people who plan for all possible outcomes, but focus on the basics. Think of things like from the Great Depression. What I mean by this is during the Great Depression, according to my grandmother who happened to have lived through it, if you didn't build it, you didn't grow it, or hunt it, you didn't have it. While they do stock up on some things, learning skills is the biggest part. Sewing, cooking on an open fire, gardening, animal husbandry, and many things like this. Many people within the homesteading community fall into this category. That said, homesteading does not mean that they are prepping for anything. Many people do not and just enjoy a simpler life. Since we already started with the SHTF, let's elaborate. As I mentioned, SHTF means shit hit the fan. This is essentially boiled down to a situation that has escalated crazy fast and is more likely than not to be dangerous. Let's give you a few examples. Soldiers talking about a routine patrol that was ambushed would refer to the ambush as shit hit the fan. If a police officer was writing a ticket for a college girl and her drunk football player boyfriend and his friends decided to teach the cop a lesson by attacking him, he would call that shit hit the fan. If a homesteader was dealing with a drought and there was a lightning storm that caused a wildfire and they had to flee, they would call it shit hit the fan. But we're writers, and so the homesteader's about to run through the fire and lightning and right into a tornado. Why? Because I can. And technically, they're not real. Another term is off the grid. Okay, this can be about living without electricity. However, in prepper context, it's not. Off the grid means off the societal map. Basically, your character has tossed their phone and broken normal contact with the outside world. Most stories today write this as the bad guy getting away. But the Doomsday Prepper plans for this in an apocalypse where tech is not unusable, or when tech is used against them. They likely have weird codes that only they and the people in their group would know. So let's say they heard an invasion's coming early. So they flip the rock on the front porch upside down to let the family and friend group know the meeting location, because things are going to happen. Or the men in gray suits are about to take over, are spotted. So they glue a Lego on the third post in the fence row by the road to warn the others. Even children within these groups know the signs they make up and made up they normally are. Signs inform other characters who know them if there's danger, safety, a safe place, where to meet, where food or weapons have been stored, directions, and more. These can also be used creatively for letting someone know if there's a spy or a bad guy or someone is on their side or anything else you want them to. These are made up by the people using them, similar to safe words that you teach your children to know if someone's picking them up so they know that the parent really did send them. So get creative. But remember, overuse of signs without repetition inside the story will lose your readers. They cannot remember one sign if you listed it in the middle of 72 other signs. At least I can't. One thing that is common to signal is where a cache is located. A cache is a store of food or weapons, medications, or other supplies. Throughout history and today, these are commonly located in caves or buried, super similar to pirates' gold. In history, things might have been stored within crates, glass jars, clay pots, or things like this. In modern times, people aim for waterproof containers. I've even seen some people use PVC pipes to store things, which, it makes sense. If it keeps water in, it keeps water out. But don't think that their things are only found hidden within the woods. No, preppers have bags that are packed, ready, and waiting. Doomsday preppers and some SHTF preppers call them bug-out bags, or sometimes ready bags. Most regular people call them ready bags, and sometimes even to-go bags. That said, I've known people within all of these communities who use these words interchangeably. The most common definitions, and I'm using that word very loosely, are that bug-out bags are for people ready to fight. Think Red Dawn the movie. While ready bags or to-go bags are more for families or natural disasters. That's just the most common. One thing about the terms is that anyone in these communities will know what the terms mean, even if it's not the ones that they use. When talking about them, they will not put other people down for having different things, but they will talk about what both of them have and why. Sure, there are normal things that you would expect, but sometimes you get surprised. I've known people who carried around decks of cards in case they got bored, parents who carried around things for their kids, and females need to think about the dreaded period. Although many don't think about this until somebody else brings it up. And I have a whole episode on the menstrual cycle that covers what can be used in modern times and in history if you'd like to learn more. Now, what they're carrying inside the bags is called gear. No big explanation needed here. But in the Doomsday community and even the gun community, there are commonly two groups of gear, tactical and tacticool. Tactical is defined as well thought out and placed in their stuff for a purpose. These are designed for function. Tacticool is defined as things designed to look cool. Simply put, they don't care if it functions. They only care that they look like Billy Badass. These will be the first people who will be killed off if things go south in your story. But hey, they're going to look cool dying. Now there is one that falls under gear, but isn't in their bags. It's called their everyday carry, sometimes abbreviated as EDC. Although I admit to hearing this abbreviation hundreds of times and forgetting what it means. Every time. These are normal things that they have on them, well, every day. The three most common items that fall into this category are guns, knives, and multi-tools. These are often carried every day because of the jobs they have or for personal protection. Many farmers carry guns in case of wild animals, so that makes this their everyday carry. My dad was an industrial maintenance man. He carried a multi-tool. That made it his everyday carry. I carry a pocket knife with me most days because it's needed for many tasks around our farm, including opening feedbacks, cutting baling twine, snipping garden plants, and yes, the rogue box has gotten it. I think you get the picture. Normally, only doomsday preppers and SHTF preppers worry about the everyday carries, but everyone knows what it means, even if I do give them blank stares when they start rambling letters off at me. Since we touched on guns, let's cover open carry and conceal and carry. This is pretty simple. Open carry means that the gun is out in plain sight for everyone to see, and conceal and carry, also called a CCW, conceal and carry weapon, means that characters are hiding a gun on them somewhere. It's important to note that if you're writing this in modern-day US, concealing a weapon in any way is legally considered concealing it. So if your character has a jacket on, even if the gun can still plainly be seen, it is legally considered concealed. Plus, each state has a list of knives that can be considered a concealed weapon, the most common being the switchblade. Each state is different, and crossing state lines, even on accident, can lead to your character getting in hot water. Make sure to research not only gun laws, but weapons, conceal and carry, and who is legally allowed to do so. Now, for those of you asking, Allie, do people really walk around with guns? The answer is yes, a huge yes. I personally see this at least a dozen people every time I go to the store, and it's guaranteed there are more. Yes, some people are scared of that, but the vast majority of us are not. Okay, if they're acting shady, I'll give you that. That would be a red flag, but I have yet to see that. On the other hand, I know people who do not open carry, ever, for any reason. Why? Simply put, if the bad guy were to show up, the person who is the biggest threat will be the first target. So, walking in with a holstered weapon makes them target number one. Seconds matter in those kinds of situations, and being the first target is not ideal. If your character is a police officer, military, ex-military, or raised by any of these, or just good friends with someone who is, they're likely going to conceal and carry. Yes, you're right, there are people who are scared of guns. It's exceptionally rare if you grew up with guns, but I know someone who was doing what they should not have been doing as a teen and shot their parents' bed. Don't worry, only the bed got it. They didn't have guns around for over a decade because they scared themselves so badly. Few important things here. 1. People in the gun community take gun safety very seriously. I have seen people kicked out of gun stores for not keeping a clearly unloaded gun pointed in a safe direction. I have seen full-grown men get into fistfights over things like this. I don't care what Hollywood says. It is taken seriously, and no one associates with people who don't. I even know of a very tragic case where brothers cut each other off because one of them was not being safe when they were hunting with the kids. Less than a year later, his son was killed in an accidental discharge. It could have been prevented if they had simply always treated the gun as if it was loaded and aimed it in a safe direction. Also, on a side note, if someone asks to see the gun, only an idiot takes it out of the holster. First, it can be seen as aggressive, and your cop characters might think that they are a threat. Second, they don't know the person. They could be a good guy, a bad guy, but they're not handing their weapon over to someone they don't know. And third, they're going to tell you all about it, what it is, where they got it, what bullets they use, how they like it, what they would like better or worse. And it's the perfect way for one character to start a conversation with another. Now, switching topics, there are a few common sayings that all preppers use. First up is the KISS method. KISS stands for Keep It Simple Stupid. This is said when people overcomplicate things. For example, if a tree fell in the yard and they didn't have a big enough chainsaw to cut the trunk, they would need to figure out how to get out of the main yard and close to the woods. They could rig up a winch, and if it was very far, they would need a lot of heavy rope that would hold the weight. And if the wrench was a hand crank winch, they'd need leverage to move something so large. And that's when someone would pop in with the KISS method and let them know that they could just chain it up to the back of the tractor and pull it out of there. It's likely to take less than 5 minutes. Most of the time, we're face-palming and wondering why we never thought of that. And yes, I say we because I've definitely had to use the KISS method. Another saying that I believe comes from the military is improvise, adapt, and overcome. It's fairly self-explanatory. If your character encounters a situation where they're not equipped for, they improvise a solution, adapt it to their current needs, and overcome the obstacle. An example would be that if they needed to dig a hole and place their cash in, but the shovel broke, they could improvise and adapt by having their dog dig the hole by telling them, "Hey, there's a squirrel in there." Once the hole is big enough, the dog gets a treat for helping them overcome the obstacle. One quick reminder before we get into all the ways things could possibly go wrong in your story. To help others find this content, pop on over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. Or if you're watching on YouTube, drop me a comment and say hello or ask a question. This is the best way to help others find my content. And now for everyone's favorite part, what could possibly go wrong in your story? Likely to go wrong. Your character open carried a large knife into the local store, and people avoided them for fear. Also likely to go wrong. Your character has a tacticool equipment for the apocalypse. When the apocalypse starts, it doesn't take long for them to realize that 50-pound bags of gear was a horrible idea. And it makes them slow and sore. Possible to go wrong. Your character open carries a weapon into the store. When a bad guy comes in to rob the store, they soon find themselves having to choose whether to step in and take on the bad guy or run and hide. Either way, they have to live with their choice. Also possible to go wrong. Your Doomsday Prepper character planned for an apocalypse. However, things didn't go as planned, and they find themselves in the middle of a Great Depression and have to learn skills the hard way. Unlikely to go wrong. Your character makes visual codes, but when they should see one, they completely miss it. Also unlikely to go wrong. Your character has an everyday character. However, on the day of the apocalypse, they forget it at home. Improbable, but still technically in the realm of possibilities. Your character believed that society was going to collapse and was prepared for that. However, the apocalypse happened, and they are forced to adapt to a new crisis on the fly. Also improbable, but still technically in the realm of possibilities. Your character is a Doomsday Prepper who lives in an area with many other Doomsday Preppers. They use a potted plants on the porch tipped over as a code for danger, go to the rally point. One day, a storm comes and knocks the plant over. When the others see it, they hurry to the rally point, not knowing it was a false alarm. Thanks for listening. Until next time, happy wordsmithing!